Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another week of the Next Level Broadcasting Show. I am Eric Huffman, joined again this week by Jared Stamen and Charlie. And wearing the Tigers hat this week along with the Sparty in
Of
the
course,
background. Yeah,
of course.
you got to represent, man. Nice job. Thank you all for joining us this week. This week we'll again break down last week's games, and we're going to introduce a little bit of Detroit Tigers talk again this week as they are still alive. And then we've got a special guest going to zoom in, I believe, for one of our segments today and talk a little college football and a little transition from high school to college, maybe. And then we'll get into our Week 7 games and preview all the action that's about to come your way this week. But right now, let's get right into last week's games. And an intriguing one, Charles, as we had Boyne City going down to Thirlby Field and taking on the Gladiators of St. Francis.
Yeah, it was a really intriguing game. It ended up being a 20-13 final score, and it was much closer than that score indicated. I mean, just a one-score game, but it truly was closer. A game defined by some turnovers, some big plays that St. Francis was able to make through the air. So without further ado, I'll quit talking about it and show everybody what they're looking to see, the highlights. So let's jump right in.
Packages together, too, by the way.
Yeah, want to give a shout out to Emma Brown, who cuts these highlights, and you see it right here.
Absolutely.
Here's a fumble that the Ramblers picked up. This is on the very first drive of the game for the Traverse City St. Francis Gladiators, and Boyne City scooped that one up. Boyne City would go ahead and hit a pass to Jamie Kelly on their second possession of the game. A nice completion from Drew Neer to Kelly. Here's 3 plays later for Braxton Lisinski for the Gladiators, and Lisinski was able to take. The Gladiators on this particular play. All right, so what we're going to see here on this highlight for the Gladiators is Cooper Sellers playing some zone coverage, and the Gladiators actually breaking tendency here for the predominant most part of the season. They've been predominantly a man-to-man defensive team. And what you're going to see here is them breaking tendency and dropping into zone coverage. Cooper Sellers is going to be at the top right of the screen, and he's going to float and make a nice interception there, just picking off of that corner route that the Ramblers were trying to hit there. So a nice play by the Gladiators, breaking tendency, and then they get the final victory, 20-13 over Boyne City. So a hard-fought game for Traverse City St. Francis, and one that they really needed.
You know, we bring it up every week. I'll just ask really quick, you know, with the gauntlet that St. Francis goes through, how healthy do they look going into the last 3 games of the season?
So right now, even at the schedule as it stands right now, only 2 more games left for St. Francis.
That's right, because they only got 8 on the schedule.
The week
right.
9 bye. So they look relatively healthy right now. Their offensive line is starting to gel. What they really need to try to get is the consistency. I thought that for the first 3 quarters of the Kingsley game, their defense was great. In the second half, their offense really perked up, but then their defense faded away in the final 2 minutes and 35 seconds of that game. So can they put a whole game together? And they will certainly be tested on the road this week. We'll jump into that game later on and talk about that, because right now we got to switch gears. And Eric, we're going to talk a little bit about the game you were at last week, Charlevoix versus Elk Rapids.
Yeah, absolutely. Shane and I were down there, and we're kind of curious to see what we were going to get out of this week's game, especially from the Elk Rapids side. I didn't know if we were going to have a fourth quarter comeback hangover after their comeback against Mansalona last week, and see what type of game they'll be able to put together against the Raiders. But Charlevoix just came out like a house of fire, and it became the Jess Sterrett Moran show. You know, seeing in some of these highlights, and one of these highlights, as I'm looking around some equipment here, you know, you get Alan Jess keeping this on some long runs too, and you get some nice long catches too. You know, stare it on an ice catch. You'll see a nice long catch here in a minute once we bring that one back.
That's unbelievable. Great ball skills there.
Yeah, you'll see a nice reach out. I think Talon Jacobs gets a really nice reception here, and another highlight or two. I believe that might be Jess running that score in. And again, you'll get a nice long pass to Carter Greenacre. I think coming up here, this might be the one to Greenacre. As you see, kind of the defense just kind of jogging behind him. He's able to catch that ball and just take off. You know, almost kind of like a lackadaisical defense, kind of unlike Elk Rapids that I've seen so far this year. And obviously, it's 20-0 already. And you get another play here. Yeah, look at this reach out for this grab. Yeah, that became our play of the night. I believe we called that out. Yeah, Titus. That was the catch by Titus there.
And Moran getting in a tub.
And again, everybody kind of got their turn toting the rock and contributing for the Raiders. Where Elk Rapids just really couldn't seem to get it together. They'll end up getting a score here later on in the game to make it somewhat respectable for them. I think it ends up being 41-6 at the end of this. As we're looking in, might have been, couldn't tell through the phone there if that was Moran or not. And you get Elk Rapids touchdown, I think, coming up here. That might have been, if I'm looking here correctly, that might have been Flutie on the touchdown there, 41-6. That ends up being the final score too, as well, 41-6. And again, Elk Rapids really didn't have much to put together. Their offense seemed to really trying to find themselves again for this game, and their defense really looked like they're grab bagging for the most part. But just an all-around good performance by the Raiders. Elk Rapids still has some winnable games on their schedule, and they've got plenty of talent. They've just got to put together a 4-quarter effort.
So with that being said, Jared, we're going to kick it over to you. Break down the East Jordan versus Mansalona highlight. You were there at Boswell Stadium last week, and, well, it was a little bit of an unconventional game, not how you
I was checking in on that game a lot.
Yeah, this was definitely the shocker of the week, I'd say, for the next level crew here. Mansalona playing, like you said, in Boswell Field, both 3-2 teams. Elk Rapids actually beating Mansalona the week prior, and thinking, they're coming off a loss of, team that's a little bit weaker than East Jordan. East Jordan is going to have a surefire win at home, and that was just really not the case from the start of the game to the end of the game. It was just the trenches. That was the main thing that just killed East Jordan. They could not get the run game going, and defensively, William Webb was running all over the place. He looked like any single Bengals quarterback just trying to survive in the backfield. He with his legs, he did make some good plays. And the first half, it was tied. At first, you're going to see some highlights. Let's see if the Mansalona, I think the last touchdown, it was a 4th and 4 from the goal, and they kind of just threw a moon ball up to the corner, and they receiver ended up getting his 1 foot in bounds. Looked like me and Christian were up there in the booth thinking, there's no way that this guy caught it, and ended up being 6 points. And East Jordan was just, as you're going to see, playing catch-up most of this game. The fourth quarter, they had some valiant efforts trying to come back, and they just could not stop Jackson Hewitt in the backfield. He was running for at least 5 to 6 yards every single time. Just that front of Dion, Boyer, and Mayu, usually the dominant force. It doesn't matter really what team you're playing. They just could not. They just could not get in the backfield. Couldn't get any TFLs, and if they did, next thing you know, oh, that's an 8-yard run, and it's 3rd and 4.
So what's intriguing me about this score and the way these highlights are playing out is last week when Mansalona played Elk Rapids, when the Elks started putting 8-9 in the box to stop that Mansalona run. Mansalona could not hit any of those long bombs, or they'd have had 2 or 3 more scores in that game. What was the difference in this game? As I think you were telling me pre-show that they're actually able to hit these passes.
Yeah, well, when they did have to pass the ball, Eric, which was pretty much not very often because, even when East Jordan would put 7 or 8 in the box, it really didn't matter. They would run this kind of 2 tight end. They motioned one of their tight ends to the left or right. And number 1, I can't remember his name off the top of my head for Mansalona. He was their kicker.
Jackson Bennett.
Jackson Bennett was their running back.
Okay.
Number 1, he was their kicker, and he played the tight end role, but he's pretty much just an outside blocker. He had to be at least 6'3", one of the biggest kids on the field, and he was just pushing dudes in the ground, getting impact blocks, pancaking guys. I mean, they didn't really have to do anything with their pass, and the few times they did, you'll see it was a big 4th down in the fourth quarter to pretty much seal the game. Jackson Hewitt sneaks out in the backfield completely unguarded and runs it in actually for a touchdown. So
what's the one takeaway is because this score really took me for a loop when I was checking in while we were broadcasting our game. What's the one thing you could take off of that to really show what happened in this game? What was the big difference?
Well, I mean, kind of like I was saying, it was the trenches. I mean, they just could not win in the trenches. And then just to make matters worse, they get the ball to start the second half, East Jordan, and they had back-to-back false start penalties, and then they get an incompletion, and then they do actually hit a 2nd and 20. They get a 34-yard screen pass, but it gets called back on a holding call. So then it's 2nd and 30 or something. It ended up being long, and they just kept biting themselves in the foot. Anytime they had a chance to get back in the game, it just was the self-imposed wounds.
Charles, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I just think that what Jared said, I would echo what he said. The trenches, not being able to control the line of scrimmage, what Mansalona was able to do in terms of getting their run game going, getting themselves into second and very comfortable down and distances, able to get Jackson Bennett out to the perimeter, and they established their inside run, established the outside run. When Mansalona, in the way that they play football, is able to get that off-tackle run going, look out, because the off-tackle sets up a lot of their boots, their passing, their looks, all kind of go off that off-tackle run play. So, I would say Mansalona came in and executed better than East Jordan. That would be my final takeaway. And with that, we're going to, if you have a final point.
No, I was just getting ready, like you said, getting ready to move on to our last game from last week. Gaylord St. Mary is going to visit the Hornets of Pellston. I believe you're bringing up the highlights for that one.
We got the highlights queued up here. Tom and Zach and Tyler Blom are up doing this one. It was all Gaylord St. Mary in this game because Gaylord St. Mary, they really came up with a purpose, and right from the jump, you're going to see this catch and then coming right off the screen into the end zone for the score right in the first half, midway through the first quarter for the St. Mary offense. And if you're interested in seeing Gaylord St. Mary highlights, here's another one by Nathan O'Connell on a touchdown run for their second score of the game. This is actually their backup quarterback now in there. And he's going to put that one all the way down. That's Eli Switalski. And Switalski, again, pitching this one out into the flat, getting a nice completion. That's Joe Jacobson running down the sideline. And you know what? In honor of Tom Clementson, who's not here, we're going to actually tune into the highlight and take a listen to some of Tom's calls on this.
6 for the St. Mary Snowbirds. All right, Switalski's going to drop back, finds an open man on the left side this time, and gets his 2-point conversion. Greenier now with it. No, Switalski's got a man open on the right side as he goes down the sideline in for the touchdown. There's Dureski. Switalski going to roll out to his left, got a man open, and it's Dureski again. Gets it all the way into the end zone for a touchdown. I'm going to give it to Gould again. He's going to go around the right side. He's got a block in front of him. And that's going to be good for 6. That was a really nice block from Adam Wall down
So as you
there.
can see there, like
Sealed that edge
compliments
off
him
and gave
right
him
on
the
the money
space
with a
to
lot of these
finish
calls.
that
Gaylord
run,
St.
and that's
Mary
going to be
just
good for
doing their thing.
6.
Yeah, and Pellston kind of
All
in a
right,
free
Gould
fall after
again.
coming out
This time he's
3-0
got
to
the
start
left
the
side
season.
and
Look at
lots
this
of
one straight
room.
drops now.
He's down the sideline,
listen
and
to
he's
this.
got all that green grass in front of him. In for the touchdown. Beautiful run. Bonter going to keep it. Finds a little bit of room, and he is fighting to get down to the end zone, and they get it in.
So obviously, you've seen it right there. All Gaylord St. Mary as they take this one. And St. Mary, as we kind of thought going into this game, you saw the last touchdown just at the end of the fourth quarter. Gaylord St. Mary really put it on Pellston. And Gaylord St. Mary this week has a 4-2 matchup versus Breckenridge, who is 4 wins, 2 losses. So St. Mary will have a good test this year. First team that Gaylord St. Mary will have played with a winning record. So they'll be coming to St. Mary's Field.
Well, and that's one of those you'll find out. You're only as good as your schedule. So we'll see if the 4-2 is a legit 4-2 against their 4-2. That'll do it for last week's games. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to get into some Detroit Tiger baseball. Since they're still alive, why not bring them back into the show for another week? And we'll talk about them when we come back after this short break. Stay tuned.
Okay.
And welcome back to the Next Level Broadcasting Show. Right now, let's get into some Detroit Tiger baseball as they are still alive. Don't know whether they should still be alive or not, as far as my opinion goes. But nonetheless, after going down 3-0 in their last game, the bats came alive and they looked like the first half Tigers there in the latter stages of this last game, winning I think it was 9-3. And now they're going to send Tarek Skubal to the mound for Game 5. And Jared, I guess a couple questions, or just fire away. Do you think they deserve to be in this still? And number two, what do you expect with Skubal coming to the mound and having one loss with him on the mound in this series already? Can they figure out the Seattle Mariners even with Skubal on the mound?
I really don't think it's whether they can figure it out or not. I just think it's can they get the runs batted in. I mean, they're getting more guys on base in Seattle, and their pitching really isn't been the issue. They've been holding the Mariners, for the most part, I think.
Jack Flaherty.
Well, I mean, it was only, 3 runs last game? I don't think you'd be that upset by that.
No, but not too many pitchers get too many looks when you've got, 15 losses going into the playoffs?
Yeah. That is true, but, I think if you can say, you're only going to allow 3 runs in the first for, a really good Mariners batting lineup, I don't really think you're going to be that upset. I think the Tigers are showing why they, were really good for the start of the season, but, what is showing why they're not, where they started falling, is because they just can't get these runs batted in. They're getting guys on base, but I believe for the first couple games in the Cleveland series, they were 1 for 23 on getting guys, getting those runs batted in. So it's really just if they can do that, they're going to see success because they got
one
the
game they
talent.
left 15 on base. I think was the one
Yeah.
game. Yeah.
And I think last game, I believe there was only 3 runners they left on base. So, I think that the Tigers really can make a run. I think they're one of those teams kind of like the Rangers a couple years ago where like everyone's like, oh, it's different because it was the bullpen for the Rangers. But this time it's just the runs batted in. If you could just figure that or just a couple times get, those 3-run home runs, I really think you can see a run from the Tigers. I'm still a believer, Eric. I think they have a shot.
Well, Charles, I guess I'll put it to you then. Could this just be a case of blind squirrel finds a nut, and they found a nut that night, and then the second half Tigers are going to rear their ugly heads again, or could this be the start of a turnaround?
Yeah, I don't really know. I would say this. With baseball, I think that momentum carries just as far as the next day's starting pitcher. I think some of the chess matches right now between managers, A.J. Hinch won in Game 4, and I think he won those chess matchups because Seattle had an extra game to play with. With A.J. Hinch, it really just comes down to who is Seattle throwing as their starter and what does their bullpen look like. Seattle's inability to continue to have good left-handed bullpen relievers really benefits the Tigers because, they might have some good right-handed pitching, but you're potentially nullifying Carpenter and Green and some of the left-handed bats, but they don't have the ability to completely nullify the Tigers' right-handed bats, and we saw that with Torres and Baez and some of those right-handed hitters earlier on. I believe it was Game 2 in Seattle. Torkelson had a clutch RBI single or 2 RBI double, and that came off of a bullpen reliever. So the right-handed bats for Detroit, I think, really have to lead the way, and they did that yesterday outside of that home run by Riley Green.
So I guess my last question I'll throw out there, does this need to be a low-scoring game for the Tigers to win?
Likely, I would say yes, but at the same time, the Tigers are explosive, and they threw off 9 runs when I think 3 innings last game or 4. So I do think low scoring definitely helps, but I think that they can keep pace if they're hot, which they were last game.
So then coming out of this, say they win the series, do you think the Tigers stand a chance against Toronto?
After what I saw against the Yankees, I'm going to have to say that's a real uphill battle. I think that
Toronto's the one team I did not want them to face until the ALCS if they got there,
right?
Because I think Toronto is the team to beat in the American League.
Yeah, I would agree. I do think that likely, you'd have to have some miracles. You cannot leave runners on base for more than 1 game in that, in that series if you want to have a chance at winning. But I do think they have, the talent to do it. It's just whether they can put it all together and be the first half Tigers or be, as you were calling them, the Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes you roar and sometimes you purr. It depends on. Apparently, it depends on who's pitching and whose bats are hot that day. Charles, you got anything else to add into this?
No, I don't. I mean, I just think what you guys touched on, it all comes down to what are they able to do, what can they put together, and how does the pitching matchup go?
Yeah, and so pretty much come down to, can Skubal get to 1 reliever before Vest? Can Skubal last long enough to get to Vest? Does Skubal have a Cleveland game in him? 14 strikeouts, maybe that many, but at least something to where he's taking over most of the highlights, and then you've got to have timely bats. Can you keep the game close and then have your bats come alive if and when they need to be? That could be the telltale for the Detroit Tigers, and if they can get out of this series and move on to the next, or if they're getting ready to look for their next tee time. So, after that, that'll end our Tiger Talk for now. We're going to take another quick break, and after we come back, we've got a special guest going to zoom in, Landon Swanson, former Charlevoix Raider, going to chime in, and we're going to talk some football with him, and we'll get into those questions and talk with him after we get back after a few announcements. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Next Level Broadcasting Show. Once again, Eric Huffman, Jared Stamen, and Charles Strail in studio this week. Right now, we've got a special guest. Charles, do you like to bring our special guest in tonight?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. And when I do that, we're going to be bringing in via Zoom our friend Landon Swanson joining us from Central Michigan University. Landon, we're going to just want to say fire up chips. I know it's your bye week right now, so we want to say thanks for making the time to come and hang out with us here on the podcast tonight. It's a pleasure to have you, and just want to say thanks for making the time. I know you got a really, really busy schedule. So with that being the case, Landon, go ahead and give yourself a nice little warm welcome into the Next Level Broadcasting.
Thank you, Charles. I'm really excited to be here. Like you said, it's my off week, so I was glad to go see family a couple days ago when they had our off days, and then we're back to practice today. So it's just nice to look back and see how the high school's doing.
Well, yeah, thanks for obviously you got a lot of different things going on and on campus and managing and juggling a lot of different things. But I know just from seeing a couple different comments from you watching football games that you get an opportunity to check in to some high school football every now and then. So with that being the case, what does your day-to-day schedule look like, and how does it allow you to tune into some football up here, and what is it that you really enjoy being able to tune into when you can?
Yeah, so usually we'll have we usually have Mondays off. Those are like our off days, and then Tuesday and Wednesday we'll get into like our harder practices. Those are like our work days. And then Thursday we have a walkthrough, and Friday we have kind of like a tempo practice to get our legs ready for the game. And so with my brother playing football now on Thursdays, I always like to text my parents and see how he's doing at the JV level there. And then Fridays, we're usually traveling, so that's just a nice time to be on the bus and check out some of the games that you guys actually broadcast and see how Charlotteboy's doing.
Yeah, definitely one of the things that we wanted to ask you is, what have you learned playing football now that if you felt like you had known that playing football back
It's exactly what I was going to ask him. Yeah, one of those.
in 2023, what have you learned that you feel like if you knew back in 2023 or 2022 would have been like eye-opening for you to have that conceptual knowledge that you've learned in the past 2 years down in Mount Pleasant?
I mean, really, there's a whole lot of technique and a bunch of different stuff that I learned from coaches, but I'd say one of the biggest things is just because I've always had that mindset just to always work hard, want to outwork everyone. So I've always had that. The college didn't really teach. I've carried that over from high school, but really just the resources and honestly just different techniques that the coaches have taught me, different ways to take on blocks and pass coverages. I never, coming from such a small school, we didn't have the resources to get into all that. So it was nice when coaches finally explained to me that we kind of just played see ball, get ball, essentially in Charlotteboy, and it was just nice to see the scheme of things. And in college you really get into the safeties are fitting here, these gaps, D-line has these gaps. It was just nice to see how a defense fully comes together in college.
Eric, I know you had a couple questions that you wanted to dive into with Landon, and just kind of go ahead.
Yeah, I want to kind of reverse that question and kind of ask him again. Landon, this is Eric Huffman. If there's something you could take from your time in college already that you wish you could take back to high school with you, if you were to be able to go back, what is something that you could be able to go back that you could take with you and put it into, say, the Charlevoix program going forward?
Let's see. If I had to pick one thing, I would honestly, what we stress most in college is this effort. Running to the ball, getting 11 hats to the ball, and that truly makes a difference in a defense. If we could, I know Coach Jess at Charlotte Boy stresses that a lot, but that's one of the biggest things that I think would really make an impact at the high school level. Just everyone stressing into the ball, like getting off of blocks, like corners coming down off of blocks, and just getting to the ball, because that's the best way to stop the run. And you stop the run, that's stopping their offense.
Yeah, and we always talk about here, it almost seems like on a weekly basis, 4 quarters of football, 4 quarters of football, you know, where he's looking for a complete game from some of these teams. And so obviously that would be a huge asset to be able to bring back to the high school game coming from you. Jared, you got anything that you would like to ask right now?
Yeah, Landon, this is Jared Stamen. I got more of a fun question for you. You know, coming from a small school, how is it playing in these big stadiums and these D1 matchups? You know, it's a bit different than the modest Northern Michigan football.
Yeah, coming from Tippy Field there and then here playing at the big house was quite the difference. But it was really awesome. Like, it's just such a cool experience to be able to do that. I'm so blessed that I'm able to play at these places and that I've gotten the opportunity to come here. But it's just so much fun to like see all that and just take it all in the moment and even get out there and play a few snaps. So that was just super cool.
Have you gotten awestruck coming in any of these stadiums?
Definitely. Like, when I walked in the big house, it was like, holy cow! Like,
Yeah.
big stadiums I've ever been in. Like, I've been to a Michigan game before, but being down on the field and truly getting to experience 110,000 fans all staring at you down on the field.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Something crazy.
So Landon, we got a couple segments here left on the podcast, and we're wondering if you can tag along with us. We got some NFL picks that we're going to make, and every week on the podcast we make some picks of who we think is going to win, who we think is going to, maybe fall short, if you will. So if you got a couple more minutes to hang out here, Eric, myself, and Jared will include you in some of these picks that are close to home teams, and we'll get your take on, I know that your schedule is so busy, but do you get a chance to watch any football on Sundays, or are you in meetings or watching film, or what does that look like?
Oh yeah, I'd love to stay with you guys and talk about games. And I love, like, every time, like on the weekends, like we'll get back from games on Saturdays. That's what I love to do. I love to watch football, and I mean that's why I'm here. And then Sundays, those are always a good day, just to sit back, relax, and watch some NFL. So. And I've got my fantasy team too. So
Okay.
Real quick, now on the Sundays when you watch them, do you get a group of the guys together? Is it more of an intimate setting? Is it do you get some of the brotherhood? What's that kind of look like for you getting together?
Oh yeah, there's definitely some times where we'll get together for some big games, but usually I just like to watch the games here with my roommates. They're pretty into football too. They're all on the football team, so usually I'll just watch it here in my dorm. But sometimes we'll have a big get together at some of the football houses.
Okay, so the first game I want to bring up to you is Lions at Kansas City. So this is a Sunday night game, so you're not going to be watching this one during the afternoon with your buddies. So, you got to be able to kind of keep this one and move with the punches here. But Lions at Chiefs, how many Lions games have you seen so far this year, and what have you seen, from maybe their linebacker positions, because, that's the position that you're kind of emulating at Central Michigan. What do you see in the Lions linebacker play, Jack Campbell, Anzalone? If you had to pick one of the two, which one would you want to try to be?
I've watched most all the Lions games this year, at least most of them that I could, because we have a little like lifts on Sundays, so sometimes I can't see the whole game, but I've seen pretty much all of them. And I honestly, when I watch the Lions, since I got moved to D-line, I mean, I'm still a hybrid defensive lineman, like / linebacker, but I've been watching Aiden Hutchinson a lot, and just the way that like his technique is so sound and just what an athlete he is. But I'd probably have to say Anzalone because of the hair.
Okay. But what about your hair, though, man? You working on the flow?
Oh yeah, I'm trying to bring it back.
Y'all make me envious.
So she didn't like the buzz cut.
Okay. Well. So you taking the Lions over the Chiefs this week? Is that what it sounds like?
Oh yeah, Lions 100%.
All right, Eric. What?
The Chiefs had last, or was it Sunday? Or
yep.
no, Monday.
Monday.
Against the Chiefs. Jags. The Jags are, 4-1 this year, but
Yeah.
just the way that game ended was crushing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm also going to take the Lions. I think since week one, and I was basically had buried them for the year already. Obviously, they've turned it around and having a great year now after that first week loss. And I don't even see this game being close. Honestly, I don't think the Chiefs are your brothers' Chiefs anymore.
Yeah. Jared, your pick, like Lions across the board.
Well, yeah, I'd say as of now, the Lions are the best team in the NFL. So, you got to win in Kansas City. That's where the Super Bowls have run through the last few years.
Okay, so the next one we want to bring you in here on, Landon, is we've got Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders. I know there's a lot of hype regarding Caleb Williams and this Bears team with Ben Johnson. But you got Bears Commanders last year. It was potentially the game of the year when Chicago won on the Hail Mary, or Washington won on the Hail Mary, excuse me. And who do you have in this rematch between Bears and Commanders?
I haven't been watching too much Bears football. I do remember watching that game last year on that Hail Mary. That was something to see.
The fan of looking at the fans. Yeah.
Honestly, I haven't really seen much out of the Bears offense this year. I know Ben Johnson's there and he's trying to get him going, but I'm gonna have to go with the Commanders on this one.
Okay, fair enough. Jared, who do you think? And Jared, who is your poll team here?
Well, I think that the Commanders definitely should be the favored one, but I think Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, it's been quite the connection this year, and I think Ben Johnson's just going to keep that going. I think the Bears are going to have a little bit of an NFC upset against the Commanders.
Eric?
I will also take the Chicago Bears on this one. I'll chalk up the Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze connection as exactly where I was headed.
I'm taking the Bears. I mean, I just think that the Bears have what it takes to go in there and win. I like the offense. The defense is coming along. Montez Sweat with another revenge game, going back to Washington, the team that traded him. There's a nugget for you if you're looking for something to, if you want to say Montez Sweat going back to Washington, playing again. But I like it. I think the Bears defense finds a way to pressure Daniels, and I think they shut down their run game better than what the Chargers did last week. I think Chicago's offensive line will be better than the Charger offensive line, which at this point in time is Swiss cheese. So we'll keep it moving here. The next one we want to bring to you, Landon, is another divisional game, which will be the Green Bay Packers and the Joe Flacco Cincinnati Bengals.
It's Jared's team.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, Joe Burrow was actually my fantasy team quarterback.
Dude, he's mine too. Come on.
It's close to home. I think I'm going to have to go with the Packers on this one. I'm not really sure how Joe Flacco's going to perform his first week back there, and I know the Bengals have kind of been struggling with their O-line this year, so.
All right, so it sounds like Landon's going with the Packers. Jared, who are you rolling with here?
I really want to say Joe Flacco is going to come into Green Bay and beat the Packers again, but unfortunately, when your team is 32nd in run blocking and 29th in pass blocking, and you got a 40-year-old statue back there and a Micah Parsons that's looking to, get more than 2.5 sacks, I think Micah Parsons is good for at least 2, maybe even 3, and Packers are going to look back to the Super Bowl contenders that we thought they were in the upcoming weeks, or the previous weeks.
I think the Packers get back to form, and I will start the Packers defense on my fantasy team this week, and they will shut down the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Flacco.
I think it's a clean sweep. Packers over the Bengals. We'll keep it rolling here for tonight's game because we do have a Thursday night game tonight. Landon, I know you just got out of practice. Your Thursday night, you probably got some homework, maybe got a recovery routine that you're doing. But tonight, we've got a battle at the Meadowlands between the Eagles and the Giants. Not playing at the Meadowlands anymore, unfortunately. It's now MetLife. But Eagles, Giants. Eagles coming off a bad loss last week to the Denver Broncos. But Giants with Jackson Dart started to percolate a little bit, and then, man, it fell apart last week at New Orleans. So who do you got tonight, Landon? The Giants or the Eagles?
I think I'm going to have to go with the Eagles. I know Jackson Dart's still getting started. He's kind of getting on a hot streak now, but I really do think the Eagles, and I think Jalen Hurts is going to finally connect with A.J. Brown for something big, and I think they're going to get their offense going nice and well.
Eric.
Well, he's just chalking up all of my fantasy players as I have A.J. Brown on my fantasy team as well, and I'm hoping the Hurts to Brown connection can come through tonight because I expect the Eagles to beat the Giants tonight.
Jared, are you going with the Eagles again?
No, I'm actually going to go with Jackson Dart and my man Cam Scataba, one of my favorite players. I loved him at ASU, wanted him to be a Bengal. You know, you got the creatine Caucasians, as a lot of these guys are calling him, and you know, they had a pretty bad game against the Saints. I think Jackson Dart had a total of 3 turnovers, and Cam Scataba fumbled the ball. And they know this game means a lot, and I think they see Philly's a little bit down. I think they're ready to kick them in the gut while they're down. Take me the Giants by a field goal.
So there's a terminology that I like to reference is that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And I'm going to go out on a limb here this evening and say that A.J. Brown and the Eagles offense and everything that you've been seeing that's not been going right for the Philly offense gets corrected tonight. And with that being the case, I think that A.J. Brown, Philadelphia Eagles offense, they get it going tonight. Giants secondary is not good. Rashid Shaheed last week hit a 75-yarder bomb. So maybe Devontae Smith gets loose in the secondary. Hurts has the ability to throw the deep ball, look for some deep shots, taking some shots down the field against the Giants. Philadelphia's offensive line, one of the best in the NFL. Giants have a strong pass rush, but I think the Eagles' offensive line is going to be able to negate that or equate that out equally. So I'm going to go with the Eagles tonight as well, 28-17.
Well, didn't Saquon not have like a Saquon-type game last week, too, when he'd be looking to bounce back and really take form?
Yeah, and with that, you know, we're talking about Saquon. Landon, who else on your fantasy team? Since we're talking fantasy football, who else are you expecting some big games from this week?
Well, Puka Nacua, so glad I picked him. He's been just on a hot streak lately. So I think he's going to have another great week. Devon A. Chain, he's been having some pretty good weeks for me. And then I actually just picked up Derek Waller off the waiver wire.
Wow.
Working him in the end zone, and after Tyreek got hurt, I'm like, man, they've got to target him some more. And he's got me 18 points the past 2 weeks. So I need another out of him.
So Eric and I are big proponents of the Green Bay Packers defense. I actually drafted the Packers defense. I had to draft the same day that they traded for Micah Parsons, and I said,
yeah, I put in a waiver claim that right as soon as I saw it.
so gotta commend you for some of the picks that you got there, Landon. And before we let you go here, do you have any final shout outs that you want to give before we part ways here?
I think I'm all right. I'm just thank you guys for having me on your podcast, and I'm glad I could be here tonight. And I just love talking football.
Talking ball indeed.
Well, you're in the right spot.
Yeah, we just want to say thanks for coming in to join us, and we know you'll be tuning in. Charlotte Raiders have a pretty good game tomorrow night versus Mansalona. Mansalona is coming in with a 4-2 record. Charlevoix looking to stay unbeaten. Will you be tuning in, Landon?
I definitely will be. I actually just on my off days I stopped up at Charlevoix practice to see how they're doing, and they're looking pretty good. And it's their homecoming night too, so I expect a big night out of the Raiders.
Just a big time in Charlevoix altogether this weekend.
Yeah, it's also Apple Fest too. So
Yeah, right.
it's
There's a lot going on in town this weekend.
One of the most fun fall weekends in Charlotte. So Landon, one more time, thanks for coming on the Next Level Broadcasting Show, and we know you'll be tuning in. And good luck the following week. We know you're on bye this week, so heal up and continue to jump into that playbook. So when your number gets called and continues to get called in the future, you're ready to take advantage of those opportunities. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks, Landon. That's Landon Swanson here joining us on the Next Level Broadcasting Show. And it certainly was a treat to be able to talk to Landon because you saw right there just how sound he is in his approach to football and his ability to understand football at different levels of football.
And I just love it when these kids, no matter how long they're away or how far they're away, when they come home, they're going back to where they came from and making sure checking on the team or, some of the kids that it may know or classmates or whatnot. But I always talked about, a legacy. It's not just what you do there, it's what you're going to leave behind as well. And to see these kids go back and continue the legacy of what's been Charlevoix Raider football recently is just speaks volumes for him.
So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at our Week 7 and preview that, because we got a lot of games that we want to talk about, because the Week 7 schedule, yeah, you see it right there. I mean, there are some absolute great games that you'll be able to tune into this week on Next Level Broadcast. I'm going to put that right in between the two of you, and then we'll make it all nice and cozy.
Appreciate it.
And we'll put that right on Jared's T-shirt. And
There you
thank
go.
you for wearing solid white, Jared. So there's the games of the week, and that's the Week 7 slate. Eric, I know you got a couple games that you're going to be talking about. The two of you will actually be at East Jordan and Harbor Springs tomorrow night.
Yeah,
So
we're going to my
break that one
hometown.
down.
I grew up there, graduated from Harbor Springs, and I played at Harbor Springs when them and East Jordan were still both in the Ski Valley. But just a couple of years ago, by the way, when I still had hair too. So it'll be interesting. As Jared, you've seen East Jordan pretty much the whole season this year.
Oh yeah, I think I've only missed one game, if maybe. I think
Yeah,
only
you were
one.
filling in for me the one week.
Oh,
yeah, because I was dealing with other issues, broken wrists and all that, whatever. But yeah, so getting back to this game, Harbor Springs is actually after I think it was 21 straight losses or so, something like that. Now they've got 3 wins in this season, and coming into an East Jordan team who really almost looked like they came off the rails. Is there anything intriguing going into this game for you?
Really, my kind of thing for like East Jordan is, likely at this point in the season, unless you have some big wins at the end of the season by large margins, you might be seeing a lack of the playoffs. But either way, I think this game, no offense to the Rams, is kind of a get-right game, you could say, for East Jordan and Max Beal and the crew. Just to start scoring those points. They only had, I think, 14 in that game, and they can put up 36-plus easily. And I think that's what they want to do against the Rams this weekend.
Well, that's one of the, you said get right, and that's kind of one of the things that I was worried about too. East Jordan seemed like they're starting off like a house of fire for this season, and now we're kind of putting a question mark over them as to, are they going to make the playoffs? Charles, you and I were talking about that a little while ago.
Yeah, one of the things that I was looking at and that you can go ahead and check out on Snooze to You, which is a free source for you to look at. It's called Mapitology, snoozetoyou.com. Great resource for you to check into where your student, where your son, where they might be playing their Week 1, Week 2, potential Week 3 high school football playoff matchups. And with East Jordan right now, they're currently right on the cutting edge of getting into the playoffs at 3-3 as their record currently resides. So they're able to beat Harbor Springs. Harbor Springs does have 3 wins on the season so far, so they come in with a 3-3 record as well. East Jordan will then play Frankfurt later on and then finish up with Elk Rapids in Week 9. So with an opponent like Elk Rapids, who's Division 6, East Jordan with a win there would likely be able to get into the playoffs, and they have one more game after that. So they, if they can finish out and I think win 2 of their next 3, I think they give themselves a very viable bid to get in. But if they win their last 3 and go 6-3, I definitely think they're in.
According to Snooze, and I may have missed this, are they on the outside looking in right now?
As it currently stands, they're projected to be in in the District 1 of Division 8. If it started today, they'd be going to Iron Mountain to play their pre-district game.
Just a short drive.
Just a short drive. And actually, that game would be a rematch from last year's district championship, where Iron Mountain took it by just a couple of points over the Red Devils last year. So if they can go 3-0 in the last 3 games of their season, all signs point to the Red Devils being able to punch their ticket into the playoffs.
Well, it remains to be seen as you and I will get down there and sit up on the roof and have a good time there at Ottawa Stadium. One of the great views that you'll get in northern Michigan is up on top of the stands. If you get on top of the press box and overlook Little Traverse Bay in the fall watching Friday night football. One of the great views around.
Hard to beat.
The other good game will be between we got a couple more games where we have 2 teams with winning records facing off, and that'll be Gaylord St. Mary versus Breckenridge. And this will be the undefeated 6-0 Gaylord St. Mary Snowbirds versus 4-2 Breckenridge. Tom Clemetson and Tyler Blom will be on site at Gaylord St. Mary for this game. And for this one, the St. Mary Snowbirds come in a little bit banged up we're not going to go into too much injury talk here in case we got some Breckenridge people tuning in. But the Snowbirds are a little bit banged up. They'll have to really lean on some of their youth like they've been doing all season long and try to out-execute Breckenridge and just play good, clean, fundamental football. That's been one of the things for St. Mary when they have struggled, like against Central Lake in that first half. They didn't follow their cues. They didn't read their blocks right and just stay in their run fits and run gaps, and that cost them defensively. With Breckenridge, they really want to try and attack the perimeter. Gaylord St. Mary dealing with some injuries out there. So there will be next man up mentality for this young Snowbird crew. But given the fact that they do have home field, the home crowd at Gaylord St. Mary Stadium is right on the field. So it's a tremendous home field advantage. I'd like the Snowbirds to pull this one out.
Well, and they've had enough games where they played their twos, and if
Yeah.
they have threes, play their threes, to where you talk about next man up. It's just replacing one player with another. You really don't lose anything as far as the Snowbirds go, I think.
Yeah, he kind of took what I was thinking.
Yeah, and we talked about that through the year, and Tom's even brought it
Yeah.
up when he's been in studio. You know, the standard is the standard.
Yeah.
You know, they teach them all the same, so it doesn't matter if one goes down, the one just slides right in, and away we go.
Next game on the docket is Elk Rapids versus Tawas, and Elk Rapids coming off a drubbing last week. Let's call it what it was to Charlevoix. Charlevoix went down to Elk Rapids and just kind of bullied them around. But Elk Rapids did have that win over Mansalona the previous week, so kind of an ebb and flow season so far for Elk Rapids, and I think this is a good opportunity to get back in the win column against the Tawas Braves tomorrow night.
I think it's a perfect opportunity. Again, their defense normally carries them. Just wasn't the case last week. They gave up, I think, 30 against Boyne City. Other than that, it's been right around 10 points or in the low teens. So their defense can have good games and force turnovers. It has everything to do with the offense. And once they've gotten to and solidified Trammell as the quarterback, they've really started to hone in their offense and running that spread and doing your jet sweeps and bubble screens, setting up your deep passes to Connor Carlisle. You know, once they keep working on that more, they could have a potent offense once it all clicks. They just haven't had a 4-quarter Elk Rapids football game yet.
Jared, your take on that?
Oh yeah, I was kind of saying this. I was thinking the same thing. You know, the offense has shown flashes. It's just, but that's all it's really been is flashes. You haven't seen multiple quarters of good offense, and the defense has been great. I mean, other than some really tough opponents, but no one's really been able to stop Charlevoix so far this year. So you can't really fault them too much for that.
No, and I predict Elk Rapids to win this game probably by 2 touchdowns, maybe.
Okay, so we'll keep it moving here. The next game we've got on the docket will be Charlevoix and Mansalona, and Landon who just joined us. Landon Swanson joined us earlier in the show, former Charlevoix Raider, current CMU Fighting Chippewa, and Landon was talking about he was able to go back and see practice this week and take a look at what the Raiders were drawing up in preparation for the Mansalona Ironman. Jared, you saw the Mansalona team last week.
Yeah.
Eric, you saw them the week prior. So no better people to ask than the two of you what the Mansalona Ironmen are going to bring to town tomorrow night in Charlevoix.
I think Mansalona needs to worry about that whole backfield, and it starts with the quarterback, and it starts with Jess, and then you Garrison Starrett and Ian Moran. If you can't stop those three, it's just you don't even have to worry about the passing. They're just going to run roughshod over you, and I'll cue around what Mansalona can do with their defense. You've seen more of their offense.
Yeah.
I didn't see much offense in the one game I saw Mansalona, so you could probably talk more about that.
Yeah, I mean their offense. It's almost as one-dimensional as you can really get. If they don't have to pass the ball, they just don't want to. They run double tight ends. They got a nice number. Can't remember his name. Number 1. He's good 6'2", 6'3" guy. He totally could be on the line, but they got him outside, just pancaking corners. So I mean that's really if the Raiders. They just got to make sure that on defense, you stack the box and make them pass the ball because that's what that's really uncomfortable. It's not throw them off their plan, and I think the Raiders can see a lot of success, like the Elk Rapids did, just putting 8 in the box and saying, throw it on me and see what we can do.
Yeah, again, their running game is top notch, but if they try to plug the box, then they're able to hit the deep ball too. You can hit Starrett, you can hit one highlight head Carter Greenacre too. So they've got multiple weapons on the Charlevoix offense.
The last game on the slate that we'll talk about here tonight will actually be the first game to kick off tomorrow night. That'll be Traverse City St. Francis going down to take on Pontiac Notre Dame Prep. So 2 top 10 in the coaches poll ranked teams in Division 5 for Pontiac Notre Dame Prep and Division 6 for Traverse City St. Francis. This will be an absolute slobber knocker of a game, and I expect nothing less because these 2 teams are very good opponents for one another, as each of these teams plans to make a deep run into the playoffs this year. The Fighting Irish of Pontiac Notre Dame Prep, if you see there on the screen right in the middle, they have a very good, skilled quarterback, an excellent short passing game, able to get the ball out to their athletes in space on the perimeter. They quickly develop their routes. Their route concepts are very clean, and it allows their quarterback to get through 1, 2, sometimes even 3 reads within 3 seconds. So for the Traverse City St. Francis Gladiators, they will need to be able to cover and tackle in space. One of their keys to success tomorrow night. Last week against Boyne City, they mixed in a little more zone defensive coverage. Earlier on in the season, they've been more so man, but mixing it up, kind of showing some different looks. Look for them to maybe bring some pressure off the edge from guys like Alex Jetter to try and get some pressure on the quarterback. Defensively, Pontiac Notre Dame Prep has an interesting schematic where they will sometimes drop their inside defensive tackles into coverage and then blitz linebackers either from the edge or in the A or B gap just to try to give the offensive line a hard time of knowing where their block assignment is. And if that's the case tomorrow night, this Gladiator offensive line is really going to have to earn their stripes, because if you're constantly shifting around on the defensive line, it changes all the different angles that an offensive lineman has to take in order to get that block. Oh, I've got to get a duo play on the backside, and now after we hit duo, we're going to try to combo up to the linebacker. And if that linebacker's blitzing, then what do you do in that situation? Or if that defensive tackle drops in coverage and they blitz from the corner or the edge, how do you shift your line? So I think it'll be a really good game. Once again, that game kicks off at 6 p.m. tomorrow night. I'll be down at that one. Eric and Jared will be in Harbor Springs.
Yes, sir.
Shane Smith and Gorney and the crew will be in Charlevoix for Charlevoix Mansalona. As I said, Tom Klemetson, Tyler Blom, and Zach Kennedy will be in Gaylord for Gaylord St. Mary and Breckenridge. And then last but not least, Christian Swinsicki, and he'll get the Elk Rapids Tawas game. And then, it should be a fun night of football.
Absolutely. That's going to do it for this week's show. Don't forget, always go to nextlevelbroadcasting.net where you can watch all the games at once or pick your favorite. And you can also click YouTube there. You can go right to the YouTube channel of your team to watch. Gaylord St. Mary's fans, don't forget to subscribe to St. Mary's Athletics so you can watch all your Gaylord St. Mary's Snowbirds games. Elk Rapids fans, elkrapidsfootball.com, and click the Watch Live, and it gives you the whole list of games throughout the whole season, although we're getting down to just the last few games. And don't forget all the highlights that you see every week here on the Next Level Broadcasting Show you can see on our Instagram page, Next Level Broadcasting on Instagram. Get over there, check out all the highlights, and what's great is they'll actually show the scores of the game at the end, so you can actually get your little mini game without having to watch the whole game in case you missed it. But in case you did miss it, you can always go to Next Level Broadcasting and watch any games that you may have missed throughout the season, as we keep all of those on a nice library for you to watch as well. Again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am Eric Huffman, Jared Stamen, Charles Strell behind the desk. We'll see you at the games tomorrow night. You take care. Enjoy the Thursday night game, and we'll see you tomorrow.